Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another exciting tale. Today is going to be another departure from the usual, and this one I'm going to tell a tale in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Yes, I decided that added to my repertoire, I'm going to be retelling the original Brothers Grimm fairy tales. So sit back, smash that subscribe button, and enjoy a horn of mead. And welcome to the first tale called The Frog King, or Iron Henry. Now, in old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay the great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And well, when she was dull, she took a golden ball and threw it on high and caught it. And this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand while she was holding it, but it dropped on the ground beyond, and then rolled straight into the water. Now the king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, the cry louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone would show pity." And she looked around from side to side whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, it's thou," she said. "I'm weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet, and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee, but what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything up again?" "Whether thou wilt have, dear frog," she said, "my clothes, my pearls, and jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat off thy golden plate, and drink out of thy little cup, and sleep in thy little bed, if thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below and bring thee the golden ball up again." "Oh, yes," she said, "I promise thee all thou wishest if thou wilt bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk! He lives in the water with other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came up swimming with the ball in his mouth. And while he threw it on the grass, the king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog, "take me with thee. I can't run as thou canst." But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home, and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. Now, the next day, she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the concierges, and was eating from her little golden plate. Something came creeping. Splish, splash, splish, splash, up the marble staircase, and when it got to the top, it knocked on the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." And she ran to see who was outside. But when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door, and in great haste she sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what art thou afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away?" "No," she replied. "'Tis no giant, but, well, a disgusting frog." "What does the frog want of thee?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday I was in the forest sitting by the well, playing. My golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again for me. And because he so insisted, I promised him he should be my companion. But I, never thought he would be able to come out of his water. And, now he's outside there and wants to come into me. In the meantime, a second time, a knock came. "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou not know what thou saidst to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go, let him in." Well, she went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her, step by step, to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside thee." She delayed, until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog had once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, "Now, push the little golden plate near to me that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I've eaten, and I'm satisfied. Now I'm tired. Carry me to thy little room and make thee little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, but which was now to sleep in her pretty clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards be displeased by thee." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers and carried him upstairs, and put him in the corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I'm tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father." Then she was terribly angry, and took him and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now thou wilt be quiet, odious frog," she said. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son, with beautiful eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. When he told her of how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom, then they went to sleep. And the next morning, when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on the heads and were harnessed with golden chains. And behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy with his master was changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to lay round his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Harry helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and was so full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him, as if something had broken. He turned around and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking. No, master, it's not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again and again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking. But it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of Faithful Henry, because his master was free and was happy.